Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare yourself because tonight I've gathered 3 stories that will keep you awake long after the video ends. These aren't just ghost stories, they're about moments when the ordinary world slips, when someone or something is watching. First, we'll visit a quiet country home where a teenager comes face to face with the woman in the field. Then we'll take a late-night rideshare that turns into the ride that wasn't mine. And finally, we'll end our night at a lonely cabin deep in the woods where we'll meet the doll that followed us. If you're ready, let's begin. Story 1: The Woman in the Field. I grew up in the kind of countryside where silence was its own kind of weather. At night, it wasn't just dark, it was absolute. The nearest neighbors were a mile down the road, the rest was farmland and deep woods. As a teenager, I hated the isolation. Now, as an adult, I sometimes miss the stillness, or at least I used to. The summer I turned 16, my parents left me home alone for a weekend. It was the first time I had the house all to myself. They trusted me. I wasn't the type to throw parties. Honestly, I was looking forward to it, staying up late, eating junk food, watching movies until my eyes burned. That first night passed peacefully. I stayed up scrolling on my phone, dozed off on the couch, and woke up to sunshine. Normal, safe, but the second night something shifted. Just before dusk, I went out to feed Max, our big, loyal dog who lived in a fenced enclosure behind the house. The air was warm, heavy, the cicadas buzzing like a faraway engine. I poured his food, gave him a pat, and turned to head back inside. That's when I froze. Across the road in the abandoned field, someone was standing. The field hadn't been used in years. Tall grass, broken fence, wildflowers climbing over everything. Yet there she was, a woman, or at least the shape of one. A long, pale dress. Moving slightly with the wind, dark hair loose over her shoulders, perfectly still, facing the horizon. For a long moment, I just stared. The grass around her swayed in waves, but she never shifted, never swayed, not even the tiniest movement. It was wrong. My mouth opened like I might call out, but something deep inside told me not to. Don't give her your voice. I turned back to the house, locked the door behind me, and tried to convince myself it was nothing. Lost hiker, a neighbor, a trick of the light. Still, before bed, I checked every lock twice. That night at 3 a.m, Max's barking ripped me out of sleep. Furious, guttural barking like I'd never heard from him before. I stumbled to the window and pulled the curtain aside just enough to peek. She was back, standing outside Max's fence, close now, facing the house, her head tilted slightly upward toward my window. Max was going insane, lunging at the fence. Teeth bared, but she didn't move, not an inch, just watching. I dropped to the floor, heart pounding so hard I thought it would tear out of me. Crawling across the carpet, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. Whispering, I told the dispatcher someone was on my property. My voice shook as I tried to stay quiet, as if sound itself might draw her closer. The dispatcher assured me an officer was on the way, but time bends when you're waiting like that. Max barked and barked, and then suddenly silence. That silence was worse than any noise. I forced myself to look again. She was gone. The yard was empty. When the officer arrived, I spilled the story, trembling. He searched everywhere around the fence, across the field, even the ditches along the road. Nothing, no footprints, no broken grass, no sign anyone had ever been there. He told me it was probably just a trespasser and promised to keep an eye on the area. His cruiser rolled away, the red-blue lights fading, and I was left staring at the field, knowing deep down what I'd seen wasn't normal. The next morning, sunlight felt like a lie. I went to check on Max, expecting his usual bounding energy, but he was curled in the corner of his enclosure, trembling. At the center of the pen lay a dead bird, wings spread neatly, body untouched, as if placed there deliberately. The gate was locked, no way anyone had gotten in without me hearing. My stomach turned. I buried the bird under the old tree and told myself stories. Maybe a raccoon dropped it. Maybe Max had been too scared to eat it, but none of those stories fit, not when Max wouldn't stop shaking. That night I didn't sleep. I kept every light in the house burning. Every sound made me jump. When my parents came home the next morning, I told them everything. My dad walked the property with his rifle, but found nothing. My mom tried to comfort me, saying it was probably just a drifter passing through, but I knew better, because still, even years later, when I drive past that same field, I feel it, that pulse of dread, that sense of being observed by something that doesn't need to move to be alive. And sometimes when I wake in the middle of the night, I swear I hear Max barking again, desperate, panicked, as though he's still trying to warn me about something I don't want to see. And if you're listening to this and thinking it was just your imagination, I'd agree with you, if not for one last detail. A few years after we moved, I went back to visit the old place. The field was even more overgrown, swallowing the fence entirely. But nailed to the wooden post at the edge of the road, facing the house, was something new. A single white feather, tied with twine in a perfect little knot. So what do you think she was? A trespasser, a ghost, or something older that lives between the grass and the sky? Don't get too comfortable. Our next story takes place far from empty fields in the middle of a city, where danger wears the face of someone you think you can trust. Story 2, The Ride That Wasn't Mine. It was one of those nights when the city feels half asleep, when the office windows are dark except for yours, and your brain feels like it's being microwaved by a screen. I had stayed late again, deadlines, endless emails, vending machine dinner. By the time I finally packed up, it was almost midnight. The thought of taking the subway made my skin crawl. Empty platforms, flickering lights, strangers pacing too close. So I opened the Rideshare app. 3 minutes away, a driver named Steve. Generic profile picture, middle-aged, glasses, short hair, and rating looked solid. The car was a silver sedan. When the app chimed that he had arrived, I stepped outside into the stale city air. There it was, idling by the curb, plate matched, driver waved, everything checked out. I climbed in, muttered a tired hello, and buckled up. The car smelled faintly of stale coffee. Jazz hummed softly on the radio. Steve asked if I wanted the air conditioning adjusted. Small talk, normal. The first 5 minutes I let myself relax, scrolling through my phone, but then I noticed something strange. The app's map had us going toward the highway. Instead, Steve kept to side streets, turning down smaller and smaller roads. At first, I thought it was traffic avoidance. But the farther we drove, the less familiar everything looked. Streetlights thinned out. The city glow behind us faded. Is this a shortcut? I asked, leaning forward. Construction on the main road, he replied, calm, eyes locked on the windshield. But the app hadn't said anything about construction, and as I stared at the map, my stomach dropped. The little blue dot showing our car wasn't on a road at all. It drifted across a blank gray patch of the map like we'd slipped off the world. I laughed nervously. We're off the GPS grid, I guess. No response. His hands tightened on the wheel. His posture changed, rigid, locked. Where are we going? My voice cracked slightly. I just need to make a quick stop, won't take long. Every nerve in my body screamed. No, I need to go home, turn around. Still nothing, just the steady hum of tires over cracked asphalt. My mind raced. Should I call the cops? Should I try to jump out? The car slowed as we turned onto an even darker street, the kind lined with tall trees that swallow sound. That was when survival instinct took over. I unlocked the door, threw it open, and jumped. The ground slammed into me, pain shooting through my arms and knees. But adrenaline is a powerful drug. I scrambled up and bolted into the trees, phone in hand. Behind me, tires screeched. The car door slammed. A voice shouted my name. How did he know my name? Branches tore at my clothes as I sprinted blindly. My fingers shook so badly I almost dropped the phone, but I managed to dial 911, gasping. I told the dispatcher, my driver, he's chasing me. I think he hacked the app. Please send someone, please. I crouched behind a fallen log, trying to quiet my breath. Silence, no footsteps, no shouting, just the pounding in my head. Minutes stretched like hours until finally, through the trees, I saw flashing red and blue lights. Officers found me shaking, nearly incoherent. They searched the area, but there was no sign of the man or the car. The next morning, I called the rideshare company, and that's when the real horror set in. They told me the driver's account, the one named Steve, was still active. The trip I'd requested never connected with it. The man who picked me up had intercepted the request, arrived in the right car with the right plate, and lured me inside. To this day, I don't know how he did it. A hacked app, a cloned account, or something worse. Someone who already knew my routines, waiting for me, tired enough. Desperate enough to get in, I never saw his face clearly, just the glasses catching the glow of the dashboard. But I still hear his voice sometimes, calm and steady when I close my eyes. I just need to make a quick stop. And here's the part I don't talk about often. Weeks later, when I finally convinced myself to use the rideshare app again, I ordered a car in broad daylight. Different driver, different car. I checked everything twice. Plate, name, face. Everything matched, but when I opened the back door, sitting there on the seat was a single folded note. No one else could have left it. In neat block letters, it read, Next time, don't jump. Imagine finding that note waiting for you, a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't hiding in the woods, they're sitting right in the driver's seat. And speaking of the woods, our final story takes us to a cabin getaway. A trip meant for peace, for laughter, for love, but instead, it left behind something that refused to be forgotten. Story 3, The Doll That Followed Us. Imagine finding that note waiting for you, a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't hiding in the woods, they're sitting right in the driver's seat. And speaking of the woods, our final story takes us to a cabin getaway. A trip meant for peace, for laughter, for love, but instead, it left behind something that refused to be forgotten. It was supposed to be the perfect weekend. My boyfriend Alex and I booked a cabin deep in the woods, miles from town, no Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just the two of us, a stocked fridge and silence. We wanted to escape the grind, unplug, laugh at how horror movies always exaggerate cabins in the woods. The place was small but cozy, wooden walls, wide windows, a porch that looked out into an ocean of trees. The first night was perfect. Dinner, card games, jokes about how we were definitely not in a horror movie. But the woods don't care about your jokes. The next afternoon we went exploring. The trails were more like scars through the underbrush, narrow dirt paths swallowed by green. No other hikers, no voices, just us and the sound of our footsteps. It felt both freeing and wrong. About a mile in, we stumbled into a clearing, and in the middle of it sat an old, rusted pickup truck. The windows smashed, weeds curling up through the tires, a grave marker made of steel. "Looks like it's been here forever," Alex muttered, but what froze me wasn't the truck itself, it was what hung from the rearview mirror. A doll, handmade, burlap body, wooden head, one button eye missing, the other staring. Its fabric arms dangled stiffly, swaying slightly in the breeze. "Okay, that's creepy," I said, half laughing, half whispering. Alex's face changed. His usual easy smile vanished. "Let's go," he said quickly, grabbing my hand. "What's wrong?" "Just don't like it here." His tone was sharp, almost urgent. We hurried back, leaving the clearing and its rotten truck behind. That evening, the air around us felt heavier. We tried to brush it off, but the mood had shifted. Even the woods outside seemed too quiet. No crickets, no rustling, just silence. That night, around midnight, I woke up to a sound, soft, like footsteps outside the cabin, leaves crunching, then pausing. I nudged Alex awake. He groaned. Peered through the curtains, "Probably just a deer," he whispered, but I could see in his eyes he wasn't convinced. The footsteps stopped for a while. I tried to relax, then came the sound, a soft thud against the porch, not heavy, just enough to make the air in the room colder. We crept to the window, pulling the curtain just slightly. The porch was empty, or at least it looked empty, until my eyes caught on something placed on the wooden railing. The doll, the same one from the truck, missing button eye, burlap body, watching us. "Nope," Alex whispered, shaking. "We're leaving, now." We packed at record speed. Throwing clothes into bags, our hands trembling. Every second felt like a lifetime. The woods outside pressed against the cabin walls like they were listening. We bolted into the car, gravel spitting from the tires as Alex floored it down the dirt road. I kept twisting to look behind us, convinced someone would step out of the trees. Finally, the main road appeared and relief poured in. We laughed nervously, shaking, saying it had to be some prank. Some locals trying to scare tourists, but at a gas station miles away, as I stretched my legs, I froze. Dangling from the rear bumper of our car, tied with twine, was the doll, its single button eye catching the fluorescent light. We drove straight home that night. Alex ripped the doll from the bumper and tossed it into a dumpster behind our apartment. We agreed not to talk about it again, as if silence could erase it. Weeks passed. Normal life returned. Almost. One evening I came home from work. There was a package on my doorstep, no return address. My stomach dropped. I opened it. Inside was the doll, but this time it had two eyes, both button eyes, shiny and black, staring back at me. And tucked into its tiny stitched hand was a folded scrap of paper. It said in jagged handwriting, "Cabins are temporary, homes are forever." You've just heard 3 stories: a woman who stood too still in the field, a driver who was never really a driver, a doll that refused to be left behind. Which story unsettled you the most? Tell me in the comments. Was it the silent woman staring up at the window, the fake driver who somehow knew the passenger's name, or the doll stitched with patience and hate waiting at the doorstep? If you made it this far, you're braver than most. But don't relax yet, because the next story could be yours. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a night like this. Until next time, keep the lights on. You never know who or what might be standing just outside.